Carrying the burden of the heavy gown laced with rhinestones and a body layered with diamonds, you sat down on the soft mattress in the dimly lit room. You looked around deeply, inhaling the sweet scent of the candles lit in the room to lift the ambience. It felt cozy and comfortable considering the approaching colder climate. You exhaled heavily, lifting both your legs and placing them before you on the bed. Waiting for the door to the room to open, you reminisced how you ended up in the room. Stop! I'm really tired. You breathed out, bending your body 90 degrees, placing your palms on your knees while your eyes were stuck on him who was running closer to you. His fluffy hair bounced as he skipped his way towards you with a huge smile on his face. Come on, Ryan, don't give up now. We have a few more things to do, he commented as he grabbed your wrist, pulling you straight up and dragging you to another ride in the amusement park. You both just freshly completed your college degree. It was a new freedom. Now, in a legal age and in love, all you both wanted to do was spend as much time together as you could. As the Ferris wheel rotated to the top, your eyes darted to all the distal ends of the amusement park situated between a thick cover of evergreen trees. Your smile widened in awe, looking at the world so small beneath your feet. You closed your eyes for a brief moment before turning towards your lovely boyfriend of 1 year. As you opened your eyes, they met his pair already staring at you deeply. The close proximity between the two of you worked as two magnets placed together just enough for them to attach themselves to each other. The slight distance closed by every second. There were no sound, no background, which disrupted the two of you as he attached his lips with yours gently. Something went up your spine like an electric shock at the touch of his skin against yours. The gentleness swept you like the cold breeze touching your skin ever so lightly. His right thumb gently rubbing the back of your palms, making you calmer, and his left fingers brushed your cheeks, decorating them with pink tint. He detached his lips soon enough and placed his forehead on yours, allowing your breaths to mix. This was new for both of you. First ever relationship for the two of you. You were smitten for each other. He was never a person to put you in a confused state. He made sure that he let you know that his intentions was to marry you as soon as he got a job. And you were waiting for that day when he comes running to you saying that he finally found a place for the two of you. I love you, Ryan, he affirmed. I love you too, Jungkook. You looked at your phone that you placed on the bedside table. It was dark. You were not hoping for it to light up. While you were busy in your thoughts, the door opened. Your eyes shot up with a pumping heart, only to relax once again. A woman in her 50s entered the room along with some other ladies smiling at you. You smiled back at them, attempting to get up from the bed. Don't get up, Ryan. We just bought a few food items in case you both get hungry at night, the elder woman said. You both have a long night ahead, chuckled a girl of your age. You blushed at her comment uncomfortably and remained silent as the ladies placed a few fruits on the center table in the room. A few of them approached you and gently removed a few painful clips from your hair, relieving you of the heaviness since morning. Your hair was let loose, which somehow fell framing your face, making you more attractive than you already are. They looked at you with gentleness, as your entire figure in the dim room was making you appear sensual. The man who fell for you was indeed right and lucky. Don't worry about anything, Ryan. We are here for you, and you should also video call your mother now if you miss her. The woman in her 50s, who was also your mother in law, said. You nodded in agreement while the ladies left the room, closing the door behind them, leaving you alone again in that room. Another stream of flashback crawled into your mind without your notice. Don't talk to your father like that, your mother shouted back at you. You were glaring at your parents with the tears threatening to fall from your eyes. Why can't I? You made this decision without asking me. We just thought that now that you have attained the legal age, we should find someone suitable for you. And you both did not think that it is a good idea to ask me when making decisions for me? On one side, you say that I'm grown up, and on the other side, you deprive me of my own choice. You always loved the dresses we bought. You always told us that you were happy with the food that we made for you and the school accessories we bought for you. So we thought that we are on the same page, your mother explained. But this is not a school accessory or a dress that I can choose to wear or keep them in my wardrobe unused. This is marriage. It is a choice that I have to live with for the rest of my life. I am sorry, Vayan. We should have known that you are now as adult as me and your mother. We should have asked you. Your father apologized. Exactly. You should have considered that I have the acumen instead of considering me as a child. Trust us, Vayan. It is still not too late. Do you have anyone in mind? Your mother budged in. Yes. You gave an instant reply. Who is he? She came closer. My boyfriend. You gave a reply without hesitation. Your parents looked at each other and back at you. They knew him while visiting your college. They knew he was a respectful boy, but somewhere their mind was not satisfied. Is he willing to marry you? She asked. He is, but after he gets a job. You trailed off. No, your mom continued. Is he willing to marry you this year, in a few months maybe? You were surprised at this request. I told you, Mom, he needs to get a job to support a family. He said that he will marry me only after that. How long will it take for him to get a job? She asked again, irritating you. Mom, how can I say that? Getting a job takes time. We just graduated from an arts college. Your parents sighed. You ask him if he can marry you right away, Ryan. We cannot wait for another 2 or 5 years under the pretext that some guy from your college will marry you one unknown day. Tell him that we will take up all the expenses of marriage and the cost of living if that is what he is worried about. You give us an answer after talking to him. You huffed, listening to him as you went upstairs without giving them a reply. Their bizarre demands didn't need any replies. But you got curious. If you were to ask him to marry you today, will he agree? You went to your room, shutting the door behind, settling yourself on your study table. You pulled up your phone and decided to text him. You were surprised how he left the chat just like that after reading your text. You waited looking at the screen blankly for him to come back. The night fell with you waiting for him to reply, but the reply did not come that day. You're afraid of being rejected, but you did not want to assume things. Your question was out of the blue, and you knew that it might have made him uncomfortable and put him in thoughts. You wanted to give him time, as you were sure about a positive answer from him. No matter how long it took, you had trust in him, in his love. You knew things would go back to normal the next morning. The next morning, you woke up early and picked up your phone the first thing in the morning. You could say that the unusual behavior of your boyfriend last night had hardly allowed you to sleep. You quickly opened the chat box to see if he had texted you at night. Nothing. There was nothing. Everything looked the way it was. He might have ran out of his internet service, you thought. Things like this happen, right? Internet companies need to step up their services. You cursed the internet providers while dialing his number saved in your phone, which was decorated with hearts and flowers around his nickname Cuckoo. The call tone beeped on your phone. You sat there on the bed waiting for him to pick up the call. After a few seconds, the call automatically got disconnected. You sighed, ignoring the rising fear in your heart. You called him again, but this time you received an automated message that his phone was busy on another call. You cut the call and went to do your morning routine. You decided to wait until his call was done so that you can talk to him. After the morning routine, you went back and picked up the phone and called him again. But to your disappointment, this time the phone was switched off. Was he ignoring your calls? Did he purposefully switch off his phone so that you won't call him? Your fears rose to the throat, tightening the muscles, making it harder for you to breathe. If it was any other day, you would have just ignored the incident, but the things aligning in a way giving you a negative feeling. You gulped down the fear once again, holding on to the trust you had in his love. It was a shame that this trust on him made you wait for him to text back and call you back in silence for 2 days after he read your message. For anyone who was an outsider in the relationship could tell you that you are a fool to wait for his text. But your mental state was beyond explanation. You had this intense belief in his words, and you were so in love with him to think that he would have any thoughts that does not align with yours. You heard a faint knock on your door. Your face slightly lit up, thinking that it is your mom saying that Jungkook is here to meet you. You quickly opened the door to see your mom. You waited for her to say the sentence you wanted to hear so badly. She simply looked at you with her tired eyes. She never looked this old like she looks now. She had dark circles below her eyes and her cheeks sunk down, exposing her cheekbones. How did you not notice this before? She simply walked inside the room and sat down on your bed. You were confused, but you sat next to her, waiting for her to say something. Did you say something? The first question came from her mouth. You felt your tears threatening you to fall off from your eyes. You slightly nodded a no, looking down on your lap. Your mom exhaled a shaky breath. I am calling the party who are interested to marry you. Your head shot up onto her face, a tinge of growing anger visible on your face. I told you that he will reply. Can't you wait for a few more days? No, Ryan, I cannot wait, she said, making you more angry at her adamant nature. Are you that desperate to send me off? Am I a burden to you? You spat out anger onto her. Were you wrong to defend your love and choice? Yes, I am in need to see you with a family who will support you in our absence. What do you mean by your absence? You looked down at her confused. Your mother sniffed a little. Sit here, I need to tell you this. She motioned you to sit next to her. You reluctantly sat next to her once again. You know that your dad. Those tears that were till now threatening you to fall finally made their way to your cheeks. One by one, each of your eyelashes became wet. The salty taste of tears and the painful news gripped your throat tightly, like it were someone's hand trying to choke you to death. She was bearing the pain all alone till now. Now you knew why your parents wanted you to get married this early. You had no more time to waste. You had a reason to force yourself to have a ring around your ring finger. You took your handbag and headed out to the bus station. Without wasting any time, you got yourself a ticket to the bus stop from where you could get to Jungkook's house. You were not sure where he lived. You both were in a relationship for 1 year, but you never visited his place. He had never brought up that topic, and you never thought anything about it. But now, time had come that you talked to him in person and even meet his parents. The bus slowly pulled at the bus station. You looked at the address you had written on a piece of paper and followed the directions. You were somehow taken aback where you landed. You even wondered if you were at the right place. There were thatched houses, people gathering cardboards, and old people sitting on the streets, a place that you had never visited before. Is this where Jungkook, my boyfriend of 1 year, lives? You questioned as you reached a house. You hesitantly knocked at the door. You heard loud voices of women inside the house and some utensils falling on the floor. After a few minutes, a lady in her 50s opened the door. Yes? She politely asked. I'm here to meet Jungkook. You hesitantly replied, not knowing if you were at the right house. Oh, are you his friend? She asked. You nodded, and were about to say that you are his girlfriend, but before you could add anything more, she shouted Jungkook's name. You were relieved to know that you were at the right place and he was at home. He came at the door within seconds. Your friend is here to meet you, the lady said as she moved back for him to see you. The moment he saw your face, his face crunched in surprise and fear. Well, why in? He appeared speechless. Why don't you invite your friend in? The lady asked. Come in, Wayan. He hesitantly moved to the side while you walked inside a house filled with random stuffs and objects everywhere. It was an environment that you had never witnessed before. The front of the windows had household items, which blocked the path for the sunlight to enter the room. Lots of utensils and stuffs in the living room, making the room congested. You had no idea that he lived in this condition like this. He never asked you to come to visit his parents or invited you to his house. You now understood why he avoided that part during the relationship. But inside your mind, you were ready to accept all of this for the man you loved. This is my mother, Ryan. Jungkook introduced you to his mother. You bowed to the woman who welcomed you in. And this is my classmate and friend, Ryan. He introduced you to his mom as a friend. You stayed silent, not wanting to interrupt the conversation, but you were disappointed at the way he introduced you to his mother. Did he not want his mother to know about you? Did he think that you were not good enough? How is everything, Ryan? Will you drink something? She smiled at you as you nodded a yes, planning to stay longer with your boyfriend and his family you just met. No, Mom, he quickly interrupted. She will leave in a few minutes, so don't bother. Jungkook interrupted, denying the request from his mother for you. That will be rude, Jungkook. I will prepare something for her. She left to probably her kitchen. Jungkook looked at you briefly. Follow me, he coldly said as you walked behind him. The way he was cold to you made you think. If he was irritated by you showing up at the door, did you make a mistake by visiting your boyfriend without his permission? You both walked into a small, congested room lit by a fluorescent bulb. There was only a small bed on one side of the tiny room and a small table and chair with some books on it. On one corner was another table where Jungkook had all his clothes folded and his electronics and perfumes placed. The room was so small with hardly a small ventilation. As you scanned the room, there was someone who was looking at you feeling slightly embarrassed of the situation he lived in. Why are you here, Ryan? He coldly asked as you looked back at him who was so close to you looking down at your small figure. Why did you leave me on read? And why is your phone always switched off? You didn't call me for 3 days, Jungkook. So? He replied. So? I was worried about you. You trailed off. My phone broke, Ryan, and I lost your contact. You lost your girlfriend's contact. You could have just come to my house. You know where I live. He hummed as he sat down on his bed. Tell me the truth, Jungkook. I was worried sick for you, not knowing how to reach out to you. He remained silent as he looked at him, waiting for an answer. You heard a knock at the door. You opened the door to see Jungkook's sister at the door with a faint smile, holding two glasses of coffee in her hand. Take this, Wayan, she said, forwarding the cups to you. Thank you, you replied, accepting the cups. The girl closed the door, giving you two privacy. You brought one cup towards Jungkook, who was still looking down at his lap, not wanting to see you. Jungkook, take this coffee, you softly said. You shouldn't have accepted when my mom asked you for a drink. What do you mean? You felt more and more confused over his behavior. You should have rejected her when she said that she will prepare something for you. She was being so nice that I couldn't reject. She is a damn old woman, Ryan. She has bone problems and can hardly work in a kitchen. You felt dispirited by the way he was whisper shouting at you. I didn't know that, Jungkook. You bit your lips tightly and placed the glasses on the table. I didn't know anything, Jungkook. Where you lived, what your parents do, or how you lived, you never told me. I didn't want you to know, Ryan. I did not want you to know that the guy who was dating you lived in a shack with a sick mother and his sister. I didn't want you to know that I was financially struggling. I didn't want you to know that I live in a poor society because you would be disgusted of me. What the hell are you saying, Jungkook? You kneeled down in front of him, holding his cheeks ever so gently, making him face you. How could you think that I loved your societal status or the way you lived? You created all these thoughts about me yourself. You never bothered to tell me anything about yourself, even when I asked you. Did you ever consider me worthy enough to know your problems? You asked him without any hesitation. What if I tell you? What are you going to even do about it if you know? Can you change whatever I'm going through? No, right? He pulled your hands off his cheeks and put them in between his big palms on his lap. I did not text you back because I cannot marry you right now, Ian. And I did not want to say that to you. You looked at him in disbelief. And what about your promises? Did they mean nothing to you? Did you ever love me? You questioned. Ian, I know, and I still want to marry you. But I cannot do that right now. You understood that he was referring to the finances. You quickly stood up and sat beside him on the bed, thinking that the next thing you are going to tell him will probably convince him. You don't have to worry a thing about finances, Cook. My parents said that they will take care of the wedding and the following expenses. And about job, you can study from my home and get a job. He looked at you with his cold eyes. And what about my family, my mom and sister? They can live with us at my parents' house. He shook his head in dissatisfaction. That will not work, Ryan. My mom and her cultural beliefs won't allow this. What do you mean? My mom is an Orthodox person and she will not accept our relationship. But you never told me this before. Why do you always have to go to that? You never told me this, you never told me that. I am sorry, okay? He once again whispered, yelled at you in frustration. Can't we convince her? No, Ryan. Even if we do convince her, my society and people will not accept our relationship. So, you entered into this relationship knowing that your society will not accept us? I thought I can convince my mother and sister, but I was wrong. I cannot convince people in my society. But it is not the society who fell in love and going to live together. It is us, Shingu. We are in love, and it is us who needs to make a decision. It is not that simple and pretty, Ryan. Then let's run away, please. You begged, holding his hand tightly, wanting to get a positive nod from him. It is easy for you to say this, Ryan. He yanked your hand away. You are a single child for your parents and from a wealthy and forward thinking society. They will accept the relationship. My families are not like yours. If I stay selfish and we elope, my society will oust my family. I have a sister, Ryan. She has a future too. If people get to know that her brother ran away with someone, no one will marry her. You felt completely devastated hearing him say all this at this point when you needed him the most. You broke down completely in front of him. All you could see was the blurry image of him sitting next to you in his usual white t-shirt you admired all this time. Without another thought, your arms involuntarily snaked around his torso, hugging him tightly. From the sides, you buried your cheeks into his clothed skin, letting out the tears and sobs in the room. Please stop crying, Vayan, he said. The walls in this house are thin. My mom and sister will think something wrong about us. Even amidst your breakdown, his family and reputation stood up for him. You turned your head towards his body, pushing your face completely into his sides, which covered your face and reduced the noise you made while crying your heart out. Why didn't we think about all this back then? And why are you backing off from your promises now, Jungkook? Your muffled voice came out. We were so blind in love, Vayan. It is my fault that I only cared about my feelings for you. I only cared about my desire to be with you, to marry you, and have a family with you. I was so blind that I kept you in dark. His tears made way to his cheeks as he realized how he is going to miss all those days he spent smiling with you. He is about to lose your affection, your love and care, your kisses, and the way you stroke his cheeks with love. He will no longer be able to call you his, and he will no longer be able to hold you in his arms, telling you that he will never let you go. His hands raised up, pulling you closer into a tight hug as he hid his face into your nape, crying against your skin. You both stayed there for several minutes, enjoying being in each other's arms. After a few minutes, he pulled back slightly. You should leave now. It is getting late, Ryan, he said as you looked at him, hoping that he would change his mind. But he did not say a word after that. You took your bag and stood up from the bed, eyes not leaving his broken figure. You made your way towards the door. Your heart and mind was waiting for a call from him. You were waiting for him to say, "This is all a joke. Tell me that we will be together forever." You wished all this. Ryan, he called you from behind as you stood there with that unnecessary hope rising up. He came closer to you and turned you, holding your upper arm. You looked into his eyes, waiting for him to say something. Wipe your tears before you leave. I don't want my mom to suspect us. These were the words that he chose to say. More tears made its way. He took a wet tissue from the table, placing his warm left palm on your teary cheek. He wiped the tears on your right cheek with the tissue slowly. Savoring every moment and every warmth of his touch, you stood there, wishing for the tears to never stop so that you could stay here forever. I am sorry, Ryan, he spoke. You shook your head as a no, while you once again crashed into his chest, hugging him once again, probably the last time. Millions of emotions passed through you in these 1 to 2 hours of being in his house. A lot of truths and revelations, a lot of things to handle, from lovers to having broken hearts. In a split of time, you both were now on two different paths in life. Those times spent together was now just in memories, and all those promises were just a few words that held no meaning in them. It felt as if there was no base in this relationship which was already made with lies. You finally made your way out of his house to head back to your safe place. He watched you disappear out of his sight. He kept his eyes hooked there, wanting to see his love becoming a distant image in his mind. After a few minutes, he closed the door, turning back to see his mother looking at him with her serious expression. She will not be coming back here again, right? His heart dropped in a split second. No, Mom, she will not be coming back again. You got down from the bus. You headed back to your house. With the spare key, you opened the door to your home, the place where your family lives, the place where you spend most of your life. You heard a faint laugh from the dining area. As you walked to the corridor that leads to the dining area, you saw both your mom and dad on the floor with some books open. You stood there without disturbing them, wanting to know what they were up to. Look at this picture. She had only two teeth in her lower gum. Look how she's chewing the apple by herself. Your mother laughed, showing your father the photo album. You looked carefully to see how all the photo albums were filled with your pictures. Do you remember how she would constantly draw on your office files and on the wall with crayons? Your mother remembered. I can recall how once she drew a mustache on your face while you were sleeping and you went shopping with that on. Your father burst into a fit of laughter while mocking your mother, who was still embarrassed about the incident. And the way she would cry like a siren when we went to drop her to school every day. You smiled, looking at the couple. You were thinking about leaving them. You were putting your parents, who raised you all these years, against a guy you dated for a year and would not want to sacrifice his family for you. What are you doing there alone? Come join us. You were brought back from the trance when your father called you out. You saw the both of them smiling at you. You smiled back with tears in your eyes. You walked to them and joined their company. Today you had tears in your eyes. First, it was for a loss, and now it was for regaining and realizing what you already had. The door slowly opened. Lost in your own world, you did not notice a man entering the room dressed all fancy. He entered the room, closing the door behind him. You were looking down at your lap, but were finally brought back out of your dreamland by a faint cough. Ryan? The man's honey voice called your name. You looked up at him, a visibly nervous man whose hands were shaking and eyes were moving from one end of the room to the other, but never settling on yours. Yes, you answered to his call. I guess you are tired. You can go to bed. You looked at him, waiting for him to settle down on the other side of the bed like a married couple. But he took out a pillow and a blanket and moved to the sofa. Jimin, where are you going? You asked him. He turned around, facing you with his dimpled smile. I am not going anywhere, just going to sleep on the sofa. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable sharing a bed. You smiled internally. You find his behavior cute. You don't have to sleep on the sofa. The bed has enough space for the both of us. You replied. You were ready to insist more, because you knew that he would probably politely reject your proposal and sleep on the sofa. Really? You are okay with that? To your surprise, he jumped up from the sofa and came to the other side of the bed and sat comfortably there. Don't worry, Ryan. I won't cross this imaginary border between us even in sleep. He pointed his finger on the bed, drawing an imaginary line from one end of the bed to another. He smiled widely, making his eyes disappear under his squishy cheeks. What were you even expecting? The very first night you knew this man was flirty and goofy. You smiled involuntarily. Wow, this is the first time I saw you smiling the entire day. You are so beautiful when you smile, Ryan. He complimented you without any filter. I love you, he blurted. I love your smile. I mean, you have good teeth and kissable lips. He blurted again. Realizing again what he is saying, he attempted to correct himself to sound less creepy in front of his new wife. I mean, you have good lips, in a good way. I did not think anything weird. Trust me. You sighed. In jest, you love me? You suddenly spoke up. He shouted with no hesitation. Since when? Since the time I saw you at your cousin's wedding 2 years back. What? You liked me for 2 years? Correction, I love you. He continued while you stayed silent. I could say I fell in love on the very first sight itself. I talked to my mother about my desire to marry you, but she, who knew your family, told me that you're still in college. So we decided to wait until your studies were over. A few months back, my mom came to know that your parents are looking for a suitable person for you to get married to. He smiled while talking about his love story. You blankly stared at him. He got what he wanted. But what about me? A thought crossed your mind. I know, Ian, that you don't like me. You haven't even seen me before. but I promise you that I will make you fall in love with me." He pointed at himself proudly with a wide smile on his face. "Don't make promises to me, Jimin. You were still stuck on the trauma of breaking up from a relationship. You did not even get time to heal from the past when you were pushed into another one." Jimin stared at you with an unknown expression. "Okay, let's not make promises. I will show you my love with my actions." He smiled again, looking at you, who still had the sides facing him. He was rather confident about making you his. "Let's see how that goes," you thought while settling down on the bed with him. You were not sure if you were ready to fall in love with someone else, but you were not going to resist the process. You knew now that there was no point waiting for your phone to light up with Jungkook's call. Over the weeks, you also realized that you are in kind hands and with an understanding and supportive husband and in laws who treated you well. But you couldn't stop wondering what it would have been if Jungkook just took the risk and you both got married. You both could have been struggling to survive, but maybe things would have worked out. His family would have been mad at you both. His mother and sister would be suffering in the society. Your parents would be worried and not being able to see their daughter. After a few months, your mom would become lonely and might not be able to visit the both of you. At the end, making a lot of people suffer for the selfish wish of being together with the one you love. Was it worth the pain? But let's just leave that for our imagination. Maybe in an alternate universe. But right now, you did not want to change a thing about how things turned out to be.